Episode number 161, New Use for the Module. 161, New Use for the Module.
He really believed that children's tale. How can someone be so stupid?
Apex's voice echoed inside Cain's mind, as this one used his ego wave to create a telepathic link between his mind and that of Simon. Although Cain shed Apex's wonder at Simon's stupidity, he did not have time to relax as he focused on making sure none of the scientists noticed his invisible ego wave.
I have learned a lot about this person and knew that striking his ego was the right thing to do. How is the hacking going on? I am doing my best to finish it as fast as possible, but the device has high-level firewalls, so even if I am consuming your destiny force to enhance the module, it will still take some time. It would have been easy if I could use brute force, but that would have alerted the old man and made all our hard work useless.
Apex knew the urgency of their situation, so he was doing his best to finish the hacking. Cain could only internally sigh when he heard the system's spirit. He knew that a single mistake could lead to his doom and had to be patient. I really bit off more than I could chew this time. I had the feeling that they would sacrifice those at the lower end of the guest list, but who would have thought that even those at the higher end would suffer the same fate? Even if these people were the drags of their families, they were still nobles and had fathers and elders with the might of peak wave champions. Yet, the mysterious organization for which Orlando and Morgana worked did not care about inciting their rage. It was clear to Cain by this point that this mysterious organization had power that could face off even peak powerhouses like his master, Zarak. Cain had considered sending a request for help to Zarak. Although it would have been awkward, what was a little embarrassment compared with his life? However, Apex detected a unique force field that would pick up any message sent to the outside world. That meant that if Cain wanted to get out of there, he could only depend on himself. As he searched for a way out of his current predicament, Cain remembered how things started. Everything began when Cain appeared in front of Simon and Laura's. Before the duo could do anything, he hypnotized them and got into the vehicle. The vehicle moved on its own toward Sahara City, while Cain interrogated both Simon and Laura's until he knew every secret of the duo. Since the mysterious organization had plans for the Scion, Cain decided to take the role of the bodyguard. It was not easy, but he managed to mimic Laura's astral wave density and emulated the characteristic of the man's cultivation technique using his superb domain over the 4 basic wave arts. With everything Cain learned about Laura's, killing the man was not a problem, but he did not know if the mysterious organization would find out somehow. That is why he injected a wave virus that led to brain death in the bodyguard while keeping the rest of the organs working. Apex managed to hack Laura's AI chip, generating a backdoor that redirected every message or calls this one received to Cain. The last part of the disguise was the physical one, and Cain managed to achieve it by using 100 faces. He obtained the artifact during the 2 weeks he had of preparation after testing the limits of his battle power. Cain made a very good judgment call by taking the role of bodyguard, but now he had to keep the useless Scion alive, or else Christian would throw him into the cauldron full of boiling blood. Not wasting time, Cain continued using his hypnosis abilities to diminish Simon's pain while he guided this one.
Yes, Simon, you are unique. You have been special from the moment you were born. Although you are facing a calamity, there is good news. If you surpass it, the hidden power inside you will finally awake.
Simon could not stop his body from trembling as the idea of awakening his dormant power filled him with an immense thrill. Cain noticed the state of the Scion and carried on.
Follow my guide, and you will have a 100% chance of surpassing this trial, but you must do everything I say.
I will, Holy Spirit. Simon's reaction resembled an innocent child's, but Cain knew the Scion's past, so he did not feel guilty for tricking this one.
Good, try to mobilize the bloodline through your body according to my instructions.
Cain had not been wasting his time these past few days. He had been paying attention to every word the scientists said, learning more about this unique bloodline and how it affected people's genomes. Using his own genetic coding knowledge and the basic virtual simulation tool, Cain came out with ways to handle the bloodline so the genetic flaws that emerge would diminish. Of course, it was a complete lie when Cain told Simon that everything would be fine if this one followed his guidance. The Scion's genome was so full of mistakes by this point that the best Kane could do was slow things down. Kane was doing his best, and the guidance he gave to Simon should have allowed this one to endure several more days, but the Scion kept making mistakes and failing to keep up with his commands.
Holy child, that is not what I told you to do.
I know, but I thought this could work better. It was as if the hidden force inside me was telling me to do it. When Kane heard Simon's thoughts, he almost went berserker. It took everything inside him to keep calm and carry on.
I see, don't trust your instincts too much, holy child, as the hidden force inside you is still dormant and could make mistakes.
Okay. Kane wanted nothing more than to strangulate Simon as he heard that narcissistic response, but he endured and carried on. Despite Kane's best efforts, the genetic flaws in Simon were gathering too fast, and he would perish at any moment. The only reason the Scion had not fallen unconscious by now was Kane's ego wave. Useless piece of shit. I am doing my best and exerting my mind to its limit, and you cannot follow some simple instructions. It was very odd for Kane to lose his temper, but Simon's stupidity drove him to the limit. He was about ready to stop blocking the pain so that this one would understand the consequences of not obeying his words. We fear not godlike rivals, but pig-like team members. I finally understand what the people in the old world meant by that. Kane took several deep breaths and regained his focus as he tried to figure out how to help Simon survive the genetic flaws. Wait, genetic flaws? A flash of enlightenment crossed Kane's eyes as he remembered one of the first ordeals he faced shortly after obtaining the absolute life from System. System, repeat to me the description of the genetic coda module. Genetic coda module meant to grant Vessel the means to control life's fundamental building blocks. Tools: basic genetic stimulation, basic genetic suppression, basic genetic enhancement. The description immediately appeared in Kane's mind, and he focused on the second of its tools. In the past, he had intended to use basic genetic suppression to fix the flaw of the lightning lupus bloodline. In the end, he did not do it since his willpower grew so powerful that those emotional outbursts became insignificant, so he never got the chance to use it. However, according to the description of the genetic coda module, its power did not limit itself to just his genes. System: can I use the basic genetic suppression tool on people other than myself? Although the answer from the Absolute Life Form System came almost instantly, as always, Kane felt that the wait was eternal since it directly impacted his chances of leaving this underground city alive. Vessel can use all the tools of the genetic coda module on other life forms, but specific conditions need to be met. There must be a connection between Vessel and the target. It can be physical contact or intangible powers like an ego wave. The target must willingly accept the effect of the system's module on their bodies. It cannot be forced, and the slightest resistance will generate a failure. Note: use of genetic coda module's tools on people other than Vessel has a price 3 times higher. Kane did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw all that. The fact that the genetic coda module could work with other people filled him with a sense of thrill, but the price was like a dagger to the heart. He had always done his best to save his destiny force, and now he would have to waste it in garbage like Simon. Whatever. I can always get more in the future, but I cannot buy a new life. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 162, The Reason is Luck. 162, The Reason is Luck. With his life on the line, Kane did not hesitate to use his destiny force to suppress Simon's genetic flaws, but there were some things he needed to do first.
Apex, is your hacking of Simon's recovery capsule working?
Kane had made sure Apex would hack Simon's recovery capsule from the beginning, which is why there was a delay when Morgana received the information to her AI chip. Although it was dangerous and could have revealed his presence, he could not let anyone know exactly what was inside Simon's body.
Is fully operational. I can alter the data, deceiving the scientists into thinking what you want.
Apex had the firm belief that Kane should handle his problem on his own. Still, when the young man gave him a task, the system spirit always did it flawlessly.
Good, I will use basic genetic suppression to reduce the genetic flaws in Simon's genome. Make sure that the data coming out of the recovery capsule only shows a normal pattern.
Kane knew that the scientists would grow suspicious if they saw that Simon's genetic flaws had suddenly vanished. With Apex's hacking, they would not realize anything and would think that the Scion was resisting due to his willpower.
Well thought, Brat. I already made the alterations to the recovery capsule, so you can use the genetic coder module whenever you want. Oh,
Apex suddenly made a pause before speaking again with a cheerful voice.
the hacking on that woman's paralyzing collar is finally over. You can wake her up whenever you want, and I also hacked her recovery capsule, so the scientists will not know what is happening to her. Great.
Kane was thrilled, and the crushing pressure on his shoulders diminished. From the moment Kane entered this place, he felt like he was at the bottom of an ocean, and with every second that passed, he sank deeper and deeper. However, he felt his body rising to the surface for the first time. Kane noticed how Simon once again deviated from his instructions, leading to a rise in the rate at which the genetic flaws appeared. He wanted nothing more than to shout to this one, but he knew that a hard approach would not work for the Scion.
Holy child, I have great news. I will be able to channel a wisp of the hidden power inside your body. This will improve your condition, but you must not resist and let it flow freely. Do it now.
Simon did not express his gratitude, nor did he show some resemblance of appreciation to the
Holy Spirit.
working so hard for him. With a personality like that, any relationship he could form in the future would crumble into nothing due to his own actions. Kane saw Simon as nothing more than a parasite, so he did not bother with that arrogant response. He connected the genetic coda module to the Scion, and after paying a small fortune in Destiny Force, basic genetic suppression, began to act. Simon felt a wave of vigor running through his body, erasing nausea and weakness that assaulted him. There was a large smile on his face, and he was sure the hidden power inside him would fix everything. Kane, on the other hand, was not so happy. He could not help but frown as the absolute life form system informed him of the results of using basic genetic suppression on Simon. Basic genetic suppression has been correctly applied to the alien target. Minus 79% of genetic flaws have been suppressed. The other 21% are beyond the current capabilities of the genetic coda module. Not only did basic genetic suppression fail to erase the genetic flaws in one session completely, but there were some high-level flaws that the genetic coda module could not handle. That meant that even if Kane kept using basic genetic suppression, the high-level genetic flaws would keep piling up until there was nothing he could do to help Simon. Of course, as the process carried on, Lineage's genes would also awaken in Simon. However, they appeared at such a low rate that the Scion would be long dead before those enhanced genes could do any good. Kane took a deep breath as he tried to figure out the best path forward.
Apex, can you use my ego wave to speak to Simon and guide him like I have been doing?
Since the system spirit lived in his soul and could speak directly to his mind, Kane guessed this one could also talk to others using the force that originated in his brain. Apex did not answer immediately, and when he did, the tone of his voice made it clear how he felt about guiding unruly and narcissistic garbage like Simon.
I guess I will have to do it.
Kane only inwardly smiled as he heard the system spirit's downcast voice. Next, he focused and split his ego wave into two branches. One of Kane's ego wave's branches remained with Simon, and the other went to the young woman that almost managed to defeat a wave champion alone. The name of the young woman that had fought Orlando was Iris. She knew her mission would not be easy, but she had prepared and was confident in her capabilities. Unfortunately for Iris, she underestimated the mysterious organization's might and how dedicated the people working for it were. A simple mistake led to Orlando figuring out her identity, and the moment the old man put the paralyzing collar on the back of her neck, she knew her life was over. However, to Iris' shock, she opened her eyes and was surrounded by waves of blood as a feeling of weakness and nausea assaulted her. Even if Iris was a seasoned warrior, facing such a surreal scene just after waking up threw her mind into chaos. Luckily, A voice echoed inside her mind before she could do anything drastic that would reveal her state to the scientists.
Relax, little girl, you are in a recovery capsule. Do not use your essence wave or attack the capsule, as that would alert them and throw all my hard work to waste.
Iris' eyes widened when she heard a voice that had a sense of ancientness she had only found in great powerhouses that had lived for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. Of course, the voice inside Iris' mind belonged to Cain. He managed to generate that ancient aura by replicating the state of mind of his past life, where he looked down on the entire world and left rivers of blood in his path. Cain did not really like his past life, and his ancient tone could have been better, but he managed to trick Iris.
I have hacked the recovery capsule in which you are, so there is no reason to fear the scientists discovering you are awake unless you reveal yourself by attacking the capsule. I am speaking to you through my ego wave, but I am very far away, so don't try to fight it, or else the connection could break.
Iris was suspicious of the voice since there was no way she would just trust someone she had never met before and appear out of nowhere when she was in extreme danger. However, the fact the man was speaking to her through ego wave meant he most likely was a powerhouse. She knew of the ego eternal path of power and the force known as ego wave. According to her understanding, anyone with high control over it was most likely a peak wave champion, and there was a high chance that the man she spoke to was at an even higher level. Nevertheless, the strength of that man did not put Iris at ease. It could be someone from the mysterious organization trying to trick her, or some sadistic powerhouses that just wanted to play on her hopes.
Could Senior tell me why you are helping me?
Iris expressed her concern and confusion, but she did it with a respectful tone. She did not want to alienate the man in case this one had good intentions. Cain knew he could not answer that question as he did with Simon by appealing to the Scion's ego. Still, he was not worried since he had already planned everything.
The reason is simple, little girl, luck.
Iris was confused by those words, but she remained silent and kept listening.
You were lucky I was flying past Sahara City as you battled that puppet master. Usually I will not get involved in matters at your level, as that would be like a grown man getting between children's arguments. However, your use of the law of wind surprised me. I knew there was no way you could endure the experiment while unconscious, so I sent my ego wave in here to wake you up and give you a fighting chance.
Iris' suspicions diminished after hearing that since it made sense. She knew that some powerhouses would do things on a whim, and it was not odd to hear that some were helping young geniuses. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 163, First Death. 163, First Death. Iris knew that her domain over the law of wind, no matter how minuscule, was an impressive feat considering she had yet to become a wave champion. So, it made sense that a powerhouse would want to help her. Iris was about to continue questioning the ancient powerhouse when a sense of pain, weakness, and nausea assaulted her. She felt incredibly sick, as if her entire body was malfunctioning. Before the young woman could even ask what was happening, she heard the ancient voice again.
What a cruel method. Although I must admit whoever came up with it is very ingenious, and his talent in genetic coding is impressive. Girl, right now, a bloodline is flowing through your body, trying to change it into a hospitable host. It's doing that by generating changes to your genome. The problem is the genetic flaws left behind, which are the reason for your health problems. You have been unconscious all this time and unable to guide the bloodline, leading to many genetic flaws. Luckily, since you are a level 8 essence wave warrior, your genes are resilient, and the damage has yet to reach catastrophic levels.
Iris clenched her fist when she heard that, but along with the rage, there was a sense of hopelessness. Other than soul injuries, genetic damage is the worst type of impairment you could suffer. Even if Iris could find a way out of this place, she had no idea how to fix those genetic flaws, and spending the rest of her life in a state of perpetual sickness was not life at all. There was no fate worse for a warrior than to see their bodies crumble, and they could do nothing to stop it. Just as despair was about to set on Iris' heart, she heard something that shocked her entire body.
Little girl, I will proceed to suppress the genetic flaws to the best of my capabilities. Refrain from resisting since I have to do this without my tools, and only using my ego wave.
Iris could not believe what she had just heard, but the next second she felt a strange power reaching into the core of her cells. If she resisted, she was sure the Foss could not affect her, but there was no way she would fight back against the power that could save her warrior path. A sense of awe and wonder appeared in Iris's eyes as she felt all the pain and nausea vanishing and her vitality rising again, even stronger than before. Incredible! Iris could not believe what was happening. The genetic flaws she was certain would cripple her seemed to be vanishing, and things did not end there. Although it might be an illusion due to the sudden improvement in her condition, Iris felt even stronger than before.
Senior, you are amazing. Might I know your name?
Iris wanted to know the name of the man to whom she owed her health, but no answer came. For a moment, the young woman started to think she had made a mistake by asking for that sort of personal information. The reason for Kane's silence was not Iris' question, but the surprise he felt when he saw the data that the absolute life form system gave him. Basic genetic suppression has been correctly applied to the alien target. Percent of genetic flaws have been suppressed. The other 6% are beyond the current capabilities of the genetic coder module. The number of genetic flaws that emerged in Iris' genome was not small, but very few of them were able to reach such an outlandish level that the genetic coder module could not fix. Amazing, her genome is showing remarkable resilience. It makes sense for her DNA to be more stable than others due to her being a level 8 essence wave warrior, but even then, it should not be this impressive. Kane was not blindly guessing, since his genetic coder's knowledge allowed him to reach that conclusion. It might be that strange power that Orlando referred to as the Law of Wind. Kane was very interested in that strange power that allowed Iris Battle's strength to skyrocket, but he kept focus and carried on with the main task. Just as Iris was about to apologize for her question, the ancient voice returned.
People call me King.
Kane did not want to let the young woman wait, so he just uttered the first name that came to his mind. He had never been good with names, so why waste his time with them? When she heard how the powerhouse referred to himself, Iris showed a strange expression.
Ah, Sir King. Just King. King, I am extremely grateful for your help, and although it might be shameless of me even to ask, could you rescue me?
Iris was sure that King was incredibly powerful and could take her out of this underground city without any danger to his life.
Ah, sorry, little girl, but although I am fond of talent, I am not willing to offend the organization for someone I don't know. I am powerful enough to enter the underground city, kill everybody, and take you and the others out. Yet, as I told you before, that would be like adults interfering in a children's game. None of the people in the city could do anything to me, but when the organization finds out about my involvement, they will hunt me until the world ends.
Iris grew downcast after hearing that response, but she did not lose her composure and began to shout insults. King owed nothing to her and had already helped her by suppressing the defective genes on her genome.
I understand. I am very grateful for King's help, and no matter what, I will never forget it.
Iris spoke with a voice full of gratitude before her eyes reached an incredible focus, and a spark appeared in them for an instant. Since no one could come to rescue her, Iris was ready to break out of the recovery capsule and do her best to leave this underground city. She knew her chances of success were next to zero, but she refused to wait inside this capsule while new genetic flaws arose in her genome.
I will powerful enough not to lose composure and show gratitude and sufficient resolve to bet your life, instead of waiting for someone to come and rescue you. I like your personality, girl, but there is no reason to be so hasty while you are in the midst of obtaining a massive lucky chance.
Iris was about to make her essence wave burst with all her power when she heard King's voice again.
Lucky chance.
She did not understand what the ancient powerhouse was talking about. No matter how one looks at it, her situation could not be worse.
Girl, the bloodline running through your body is also generating lineage's genes, which belong to an extremely powerful one. The problem is that genetic flaws appear at a much higher rate, but that doesn't need to be the case. Although I cannot directly help you, I can guide you while you find a path to survival on your own. But wouldn't that make the organization target you? Girl, there are unspoken rules among people of my power. While I cannot save you, there is no problem with me showing a path for you as long as you are the one that forges it. The organization will know that someone helped you, but since I did not involve myself directly, they might not even bother to find out my identity.
Everything made sense for Iris, and she nodded, pushing her focus to the limit so as not to lose a single word King spoke.
I will guide you on how to revolve the bloodline inside your body to diminish the genetic flaws. This one will cause and enhance the rate at which the lineage's genes appear.
Iris nodded, and she followed Cain's guidance to the letter. They were the same instructions he had given to Simon, but the young woman not only followed his words as if they were a divine creed, but she also showed a granular control over the bloodline. Cain was delighted with Iris' attitude and continued guiding her while improving his understanding of the bloodline by hearing the discussion of the scientists. Apex was also doing his best to guide Simon, but the dumb scion kept making mistakes, not listening to the system spirit's advice and choosing paths that only led to more genetic flaws. Cain was aware of Simon's circumstances and was sure it would not be long before he had to spend more destiny force just to keep this one alive. The next day, something happened. One of the youths in the recovery capsules could no longer endure it and fell unconscious. Moments later, his heart stopped beating, and he had no brain activity. The first casualty among the 18 youths inside the recovery capsules finally appeared. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 164, Into the Cauldron. 164, Into the Cauldron. Cain did not feel anything when he saw the woman die. All the people here were willing to work for the mysterious organization and could not blame anyone but themselves. He was sure they would dispose of the body, but underestimated the level of commitment the scientists in charge of this clinical trial had. Christian turned toward the dead woman and waved his hand, making large tubes emerge inside the recovery capsule, which pierced into the corpse. The next second, a heartbeat appeared, and the bloodline renewed its movement through the young woman's body. There was no brain activity, but by keeping her heart still working, they could keep gathering information. Of course, the genetic data they could obtain from a reanimated corpse was worse than the one obtained from a living being, but something was better than nothing. Christian then walked toward the young woman's god and tossed this one into the giant cauldron, letting him sink into the boiling blood. Cain's eyes narrowed when he saw that, and he used the basic scan force field to analyze everything that happened with the god from the moment this one touched the boiling blood. He was surprised to find out that the inner temperature of the giant cauldron had diminished significantly. The device now focused its power on purifying the blood and sent the bloodline into the youth's recovery capsules. The one in charge of melting the gods' bodies was the boiling blood, which was actually the best path energy-wise.
Apex, do your best to keep Simon lucid, but don't worry about the number of genetic flaws amassing inside him. Oh, I know he is garbage, but if the genetic flaws inside him reach a high enough level, his body will crumble before shutting down. If that happens, you will be thrown into the giant cauldron.
Cain inwardly smiled when he heard that, and his heart reached an immense resolution.
I will be thrown into the cauldron sooner or later. The tree might not detect my ego wave, and I could even trick Orlando, but I cannot say the same about Morgana. That masked old woman's battle power seemed to have weakened tremendously due to her old age, but that doesn't mean her willpower suffered the same fate. There is a high chance she is already at the first realm of the ego eternal path of power, so if she enters this place, she might detect my invisible ego wave.
Apex did not say a word, but he was surprised and impressed by Cain's wisdom. The young man was exerting his mind to the limit by helping Iris and Simon, yet he still could keep an eye on the dozens of external factors in his surroundings. Although Cain's rapid growth made Apex happy, the golden humanoid could not help but look to the crack in the gargantuan gate and wonder just how much the Red King's ego had influenced the young man.
I will keep him lucid until the time comes that we have to toss him away. I have finally managed to hack into the building's surveillance devices, and we can know the movements of everybody inside it. Luckily, other than the 1st and 11th floors, all the others are empty. I do have bad news, and that is the AI chip module, even with the Destiny Force's reinforcement, lacks the power to take control of the teleportation matrix. However, there is a silver lining. As long as someone uses the teleportation matrix on any other floor, I can hijack the energy source to activate the matrix on the 11th floor. That is better than I expected.
Kane was thrilled with Apex's accomplishments. Although it would have been better to obtain complete control over the teleportation matrix, he knew that not everything could go according to plan. Not wasting time, Kane carried on with his work, making sure to help Iris to the best of his abilities. Thanks to his hard work, plus the use of the basic data gathering and analysis, and basic virtual simulation tools, he figured out a way to match the ratio at which the lineage's genes and the flawed genes appeared. If Morgana were to find out that, she would have been shocked, since it was something she only expected to obtain on the third clinical trial. Still, it would not have been enough to properly awaken the lineage, since the genetic flaws would have been too much. But that is where the miraculous powers of the basic genetic suppression tool enter. Kane had already used the powers of the genetic coda module for a second time on Iris to reduce the number of genetic flaws in her genome. The flaws in Iris' genome were far from reaching a catastrophic level. Still, Kane wanted to prevent the apparition of those so disastrous the current genetic coda module could not suppress. Although the cost of Destiny Foss was reaching a very high number, Kane had given Iris a crucial role in his plan to leave this place. He needed to ensure the young woman grew as strong as possible, with nothing hindering her battle power. Everything was going great, but after 2.5 weeks, Morgana had woken up. Through the surveillance cameras, Kane saw how the masked old woman immediately headed to the room with the capsules. Iris was following King's instructions when this one suddenly stopped speaking. Her instincts began to act, and she felt that something was wrong.
Little girl, you have done great, but I will have to leave you for a moment since there is a little problem I need to face. Although I can no longer communicate with you, rest assured that I am still watching over you. Do not lose patience. Keep revolving the bloodline inside your body as I taught you. According to my calculations, it will not be long before the lineage's genes inside you reach a high enough number that will allow you to awaken this mighty lineage. The next time I speak to you, it will be the time you have to use all your power to escape this place. I have already hacked most surveillance elements and am currently working on the teleportation matrix. Before I leave, let me suppress the genetic flaws again.
Iris felt the special Foss reaching the core of her cells, and her condition improved drastically, once again enhancing her power. That strength burst resulted from the genetic flaws diminishing while the lineage's genes kept rising. As she felt the immense strength running through her veins, an overwhelming sense of gratitude invaded Iris' heart.
King, allow me to tell you my name before you leave. I am Iris Zurong.
The fact that Iris revealed her name proved her deep trust in the mighty powerhouse.
Good luck, Iris Zurong. Holy Spirit, I am feeling dizzy again. Extract some of the hidden power inside my body.
Simon's voice was full of arrogance, and the way he treated the
Holy Spirit
was not better than a dog. Apex already had more than enough from the stupid and narcissistic Scion, so while Kane kindly said goodbye to Iris, he chose to repay Simon's manners.
Oh, that is no longer possible.
When Simon heard that, he grew furious. In his mind, the Holy Spirit was nothing more than a servant that needed to obey the command of the Holy Child.
How can you refuse my command? Do you understand how special I am? About that, it turns out I was wrong. You are not a holy child. You are just an asshole, good luck or whatever. I don't care.
Simon's eyes widened as he heard that before the Foss that had helped him endure the torment vanished. Absolute terror invaded his heart, and he was about to shout loudly when a wave of unbearable pain assaulted him. Without Kane's ego wave helping him reduce the pain, Simon had to face all that alone. Christian and the other 2 scientists were surprised to hear that scream of pain coming from Simon's capsule. Up to now, the Scion had been able to endure the pain just fine, so they were a little surprised by the sudden change. Nevertheless, Simon was acting like most youths were doing by this point, so they did not bother. Besides, the screams did not last long, as the Scion's heartbeat and brain waves soon stopped sending signals. Christian saw that and waved his hand, making tubes impale Simon's corpse to reignite this one's heartbeat, just as Morgana entered the room. The masked old woman saw how Simon's corpse was reanimated, but did not say a word since all that was part of the clinical trial.
Lady Morgana.
Christian and the other scientists bowed the moment Morgana entered the room. Morgana nodded to the trio before her eyes went through the recovery capsules and saw the condition of the youths. She was a little surprised that Iris was still alive, but attributed it to her high cultivation and the law of wind's support.
Christian, give me a summary of your analysis. Yes, my lady.
Morgana and Christian began to speak while another of the scientists undressed Simon's bodyguard and threw this one into the giant cauldron full of boiling blood. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 165 Points of View. 165 Points of View.
Well done, Orin. Your use of void breath has improved greatly over the last few weeks. You are able to hide your presence to a level even peak wave warriors might have a hard time detecting it.
Orin nodded to Jonathan's words as she continued moving from one corner of the room to the other, applying footwork that could disorient most people as her vital signs became undetectable. Void breath no longer drew all of her energy, and she could easily use it on a battlefield. Jonathan nodded as he saw the cadet's dedication, but as he looked around the room, he could not help but frown as he noticed that someone was missing. Kane had informed Jonathan that he would miss a few classes, which the teacher accepted. Jonathan already had taught them the essence of assassination to Kane and Orin, and the purpose of these last few classes was to polish their techniques. Jonathan did not question Kane's decision to skip the last classes since he knew the young man took the art of assassination seriously. There must be a really important reason why he chose to leave the fort. I hope that Brat is fine. He could only sigh as he imagined the dangers Kane should be facing before turning toward Orin and focusing on the girl. The next day in the genetic coda class, Camel was helping the cadets to create silver vectors, and she looked at the spot where Kane used to sit. Kane had also informed the woman that he would not be attending the last classes, and there was even less problem with him missing these than those from Jonathan. His mastery over genetic coding reached a level where Camel could only keep teaching him once this one became a grand genetic coda. Kane had already begun to create almost flawless golden vectors, and he could synthesize complex wave viruses, so there was not much to teach him other than to refine his abilities. Camel was not the only one worried about Kane, since Lurin and Ophelia also acted the same. The duo kept leaving a seat empty among themselves despite Kane not coming to classes. A young man sat inside a volcano that unleashed a heat capable of melting metal. He adopted a meditative position less than 50 meters away from the lava, and one could see burn marks all over his body. Despite the youth's condition, energy and vitality overflowed his body as golden wisps of red flames coursed through his skin. Suddenly, the youth opened his eyes and took a capsule with a red liquid before injecting it into his chest. The wave virus began to circulate inside the youth's body, inducing fever, but it was not long before a wave of immense hunger assaulted him. Luckily for the youth, energy and vitality were two things his body was currently overflowing with, and soon he felt the increase in his wave talent. As he stared at the empty capsule, the youth could not help but frown. It lasted less than a second, but that lack of focus almost made the golden red flames go wild, threatening to consume his flesh and blood as fuel.
Brat, keep focused on your cultivation and do not let the outside world taint your mind. What is the point of worrying about something when you don't have the power to change it?
That voice did not come from the sky, but deep within the volcano's lava. The idea of a man submerged in something like that was outrageous, since the lava's temperature was a fifth of the old world sun's surface. Yet, it was happening right now. Levi immediately nodded as he heard the words of his master and adopted a meditative position before shutting down everything else. It seemed that the owner of the voice noticed Levi's commitment and chose to speak again.
According to my knowledge, your friend is still alive. If something changes, I will tell you.
Levi did not open his eyes, but softly nodded as he focused on his training. Zarak was in the midst of his training, and a raging astral wave burst from his body with so much power that it could easily flood entire cities and break buildings to pieces. Even though Zarak took the ego-eternal path of power as his main path, That did not mean he neglected his astral rebirth path of power, since it was also a fundamental core of his battle power. Despite the might of Zarak's astral wave, the room's walls endured their power, proving just how mighty the Titan Tower was. Zarak's eyes narrowed as he saw that the teleportation matrix was about to act, and he retracted that bursting astral wave back into his body. Abin appeared in the room before walking toward Zarak, bowing, and immediately going straight to business.
Young Lord has yet to return to the Imperial Lightning Fort, and there is no trace of him being in the Whisper Forest, where he was supposed to be.
Kain had to take a mission to leave the fort, and he chose one in the Whisper Forest. It was not uncommon for the cadets to take assignments just so they could go somewhere else, but as long as they showed proof of their work, everything would be fine. However, while Kain's mission was incredibly challenging, he was supposed to return already. Zarak frowned as he heard that and looked toward the Whisper Forest.
He spoke with his genetic coding and assassination specialization teachers while leaving wave viruses for his friends that would last precisely until graduation. That brat is very calculative, so the number of viruses is not coincidental.
Abin understood the meaning behind those words. It seemed that Kain did not plan to return before graduation.
Lord, could you not use your ego mark to track him and know his exact whereabouts?
If Kain were to hear Abin's words, he would be shocked that something in him could allow someone to know his precise location. Although he would definitely not be happy about it, that mark already saved his life once. Zarak put the ego mark on Kain the first time they met, and it was the power that allowed him to appear out of nowhere and protect this one from the mighty abyssal demon. Zarak only sighed as he heard Abin's recommendation.
My ego mark can only tell me Kain's exact location when I am relatively close to him. Now it can only tell me whether he is alive, which is the case. I see.
Abin nodded, and her understanding of the ego eternal path of power increased slightly.
Should I deploy our forces to look for the young lord?
Zarak considered it for a moment before shaking his head.
That brat is surely on an extremely dangerous mission. If he contacts us calling for help, inform me immediately. Until then, it is up to him to survive this ordeal.
Zarak considered Kain a true divine genius in the ego eternal path of power, but it was not the inborn active ego eternal matrix that granted him that title. It was the cadet's willpower and determination to face his problems head-on. That attitude could lead Kain to his death, but could also grant him the destiny of a phoenix, rising from danger stronger than ever.
I will enter secluded cultivation. Do not disturb me unless it concerns Kain or a sector-level threat.
Abin bowed and immediately left the room. Just as she left, a ferocious river manifested and began to clash against the walls. The wall that resisted the astral wave capable of leveling a city began to crack under the crash of that mighty river. Of course, not everybody was worried about Kain's disappearance, and some were thrilled with the idea that the young genius had bitten more than he could chew and ended up dead. Zamia and Lumia's spirits had significantly risen after hearing the rumors that Kain might have perished, and they were not the only ones. Far away from the collapsing lightning sector, a person much more important than the two scions also followed the news about Kain. A young man sat in a meditative stance in a large room made of volcanic rocks, while rivers of burning flames landed on top of his body. He circulated those flames through his veins, improving his astral wave and physique. Things did not end there since those flames were incredibly painful, but that was a good thing since it helped him temper his willpower. That young man was not other than Magnus Hellblazer, the greatest genius the Hellblazer family had seen in the last 1,000 years. Magnus' eyes opened as a message arrived through his AI chip.
My lord, there has been no news of Kain Lorifer over the last couple of weeks. There is a high chance he could be dead.
Magus heard Marek's voice, and a contemplative expression appeared on his face.
Proceed with our plans in the collapsing lightning sector. Until we do not receive definitive information about his demise, we will carry on as if he was alive.
Magnus cut the communication the next second and focused on his training. He did not need to hear Marek's response, since he knew this one would follow his commands. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 166 Blood Energy, I. 166 Blood Energy, I. The young man that drew the attention of dozens of people across the Gaia continent was currently at the bottom of a giant cauldron, feeling how his entire body was boiled alive by a river of scorching blood. The heat was excruciating, and the moment Kane was outside Morgana and the other scientists' view, he immediately activated his wave cloak. Unfortunately for Kane, while his astral wave cloak granted a layer of protection, it was not enough to fight off the heat. Things could change if he used Wave Burst, but that sudden spike in energy could alert Morgana, so he could not do it. Kane's body was livid red due to the heat, but what happened to his face was even more shocking, as this one was melting. Of course, that was not really Kane's face since, even for someone like him, something like that would carry a level of unbearable pain. The thing that was melting was Kane's 100 faces. Although the wave artifact proportioned exceptional levels of camouflage, it was not meant for battle and could not endure such a hostile environment as a cauldron full of boiling blood. Kane took the mask out before it could harm his actual face as he stood at the bottom of the giant cauldron with his eyes closed. He could not see, but thanks to the basic scan force field tool, he knew everything that happened in the room. The basic scan force field did not have the Ego Wave's range or unique abilities, but it could cover peak wave champions without these ones noticing it. Kane came to that conclusion when Jonathan entered the scope of the force field and did not realize it. Of course, things were different if Kane used the basic scan force field tool to do any sort of invasive maneuvers. Right now, Kane's whole focus was on Morgana, and every second the old masked woman passed inside the room, he came closer to his death. The exchange between Morgana and the other three scientists was impressive and involved a high level of genetic coding knowledge. Yet, Kane did not have the luxury of enjoying it. Due to his mastery over Wave Cloak, Kane could keep it active for days, if not weeks. It was his body that would crumble before his energy pool drained. If Morgana left, Kane was ready to activate his wave burst to a very low percentage, enough to provide proper protection for his body, but not so high that the three scientists would notice. Unfortunately for Kane, the masked old woman seemed energized as she spoke about genetic coding, and it did not look like she would leave anytime soon. Kane's willpower was at the first realm, allowing him to keep calm even in some of the most extreme conditions, but even he could not help but grow anxious when he felt that his eyelids began to burn. They would not last long, and the next thing to be scorched by the heat would be his eyes. Just as things were about to escalate to the point of no return, Kane's mind and heart filled with determination as he opened his mouth and swallowed a mouthful of blood. It was like drinking fire. If he had not used wave focus to cover his intestines with astral wave, this would have melted. Now that the blood was inside Kane's body, he could use it to fuel the blood refinement art without worrying that someone outside could notice it. The reasons why he did not do this from the beginning were plenty. Kane had no idea what there was in this blood, but he knew that it crippled hundreds of people and provoked incredible pain. Still, the main reason was that this was human blood, and no matter how you look at it, he was consuming the blood of his own race as food. Although Kane had consumed the blood of dark races warriors for his fiend devourer cultivation technique, it was not the same. He had overcome the Empire's indoctrination, but still saw members of the dark races as alien life forms, making things like eating their flesh and drinking their blood much easier. Some would rather die than drink the blood of their race due to how a civilization could judge them, but Kane stopped caring about that the moment his life was on the line. He would not die just to avoid angering hypocrites that would have done the same if they were in his place. The moment the blood reached his stomach, Kane mobilized the blood refinement art, and he could not hide the sense of awe and shock that assaulted him. Whenever Kane mobilized the blood refinement art, he would purify the blood and obtain blood essence that would then nurture his body. However, there was no need for purification right now, as the blood inside his stomach instantly transformed into blood essence, overflowing his body with vitality. Things did not end there, since the amount of blood essence generated was so much that not only was it enough to heal the damage caused to his skin by the scorching heat, it reignited his body's refinement. Kane's domain over the blood refinement art had reached a very high level, and the only reason it could not advance further was its nature as an auxiliary technique. Auxiliary techniques granted an immense boost to someone's strength, but the yu's cultivation limited their growth. Cain had pushed the blood refinement to the absolute limit his level 4 wave warrior cultivation could obtain. Yet, thanks to the incredibly pure and potent blood essence, that limiter was breaking apart. Cain was ecstatic as he realized that, and he began to revolve the blood refinement at full power, ensuring his skin would heal from any damage while tempering his body. Those mouthfuls of blood lasted less than 5 minutes, but Cain would simply consume another and carry on. He was not afraid that Morgana or the others would notice something in the volume of the cauldron, since more than 100 corpses generated this blood. Cain not only felt how any damage he endured due to the scorching heat healed instantly, but his body was also growing stronger shockingly fast. 3 days had passed, and Morgana did not leave the room, talking to no end with the 3 scientists, but that no longer bothered Cain. She could stay in the room as long as she wanted since he did not want to go anywhere, and was perfectly fine at the bottom of that cauldron full of boiling blood. The blood was just too amazing, and Cain could not help but feel that this giant cauldron was perfect for training his blood refinement art. Cain was so focused on his training that he almost forgot about the world and fell into a state of trance, but what he saw in his basic scan force field drew him back to reality. Another of the youths had perished due to the genetic flaws in her genome reaching a catastrophic level. Christian saw that, and his face showed nothing as he waved his hand, making tubes enter the young woman's body, so they could reignite her heartbeat before glancing at one of the other scientists and returning to his conversation with Morgana. The scientist walked toward the deceased's god and stripped her before throwing her into the giant cauldron. Like all the others, that god was brainwashed to the point that even if they were about to die at the hands of the mysterious organization, they would show no disloyalty. The god fell into the boiling blood like a rock and began to submerge immediately. The hypnosis had shut down her survival instincts to the point that she did not even close her eyes. She was about to lose her vision due to the boiling blood scorching her eyes, but just before that happened, she saw a young man at the bottom of the cauldron. A sense of shock appeared on the woman's face when she realized that someone was alive inside this cauldron. She was about to inform Morgana and the others when a finger pierced through her eye and reached her brain, instantly killing her. Cain's eyes were still closed, but there was a bursting red light in them as he removed his finger from the god's head. He knew nothing about the woman, and she might very well be a good person that found herself in a bad situation, but none of that mattered. She was about to reveal his presence, and Cain would not allow anyone to endanger his life. There was no guilt or remorse in his mind or heart, and he simply carried on with the blood refinement art. The golden humanoid deep inside Cain's soul dimension saw that level of brutality and smiled, since he was glad the young man could make the hard choice when needed. However, the next second he turned toward the place where the alter ego resided and saw how the cruel and merciless part of this one grew a little stronger. Unlike all alter egos that represented one person's will, the one inside Cain was made by his heroic nature and the Red King's ego. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 167, Blood Energy, 167, Blood Energy, II. Cain immersed himself in his cultivation, and his sole focus was enhancing his blood refinement as fast as he could. Every ounce of strength would be helpful in his escape from this place, and the time was coming closer and closer with each day. He had spent almost 2 weeks inside the giant cauldron full of boiling blood. Thanks to the incredibly potent blood essence he obtained with each mouthful, his blood refinement had advanced at a crazy speed. After 13 days of nonstop training, Cain was surprised by a strange feeling. It was as if thousands of ants were trying to excavate a path out of his bones, through his muscles, and break the skin so they could finally exit his body. Cain grew ecstatic as he felt his body go through another session of marrow washing, and he began to push his blood refinement with even greater strength. Every session of marrow washing was a lucky chance that would increase his strength and wave talent and help him establish a more robust foundation for his future cultivation. A foul black substance began to excrete through Cain's paws, but luckily the boiling blood incinerated it all instantly. Cain consumed the boiling blood faster and faster so he could revolve the blood refinement art with greater strength. At this point, his body began to tremble, and a sudden rush of energy overflowed his veins. It was a new form of energy that tempered Cain's flesh and blood and appeared just at the right moment, since it helped him push out even more of the pollution inside his body. Cain did his best to control the thrill of feeling this new power and focused on his marrow washing as an impressive amount of black filth left his body. It carried on like that for a very long time until Cain felt he clashed against a wall and no more pollution left his body. He felt as if there was something that stopped him from carrying on with his marrow washing. There was nothing that Cain could do about it, and now that things finally calmed down, he focused on the new energy coursing through his body. After understanding its nature and the events that led to it, he came to a single conclusion. I managed to break through to the second level of the blood refinement art and obtained blood energy. Cain knew that he should only have been able to enter the blood refinement art's second level after becoming a wave champion, but it seemed that the giant cauldron and an almost endless source of blood essence helped him circumvent that wall. He experienced a massive boost in his strength thanks to the breakthrough in the blood refinement art, and his marrow washing improved his condition and the speed at which he could mobilize his astral wave. There was a massive overall increase in Cain's strength, and there was no better time to have that than now when he found himself in great danger. Absolute Life Form System, scan my body. Cain could not wait and commanded the system to show him his new strength. Scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power, astral rebirth, level 4 wave warrior. Lineage, lightning lupus. Wave talent, pseudo tier 6. Stats, strength 3.3. Agility 2.1. Vitality 4.4. Wave 1.6. Marrow washing, 74% completion. Note, according to the data gathered, the new energy source inside vessel belongs to the power known as blood energy. This energy is not generated naturally by the body, so vessel will need to refine more by using blood essence once depleted. Quantifying blood energy according to the parameters used to measure astral wave. Blood energy, 5.1. Cain knew he had grown very powerful, but those stats shocked him. His strength and vitality were the main focus of his blood refinement art, reaching the standard for a level 6 astral wave warrior. There was also an increase in his speed thanks to his enhanced muscle mass and bone density. Cain's eyes narrowed as he took another mouthful of boiling blood and revolved the blood refinement art. A small smile appeared on his face, and he sighed as he felt the result. I can still use the blood refinement art to obtain blood essence, so I can heal my body or replenish my blood energy, but there is no effect on my power. It seems that even with high-level resources, I will not be able to advance in the art without first increasing my cultivation. Cain was not surprised since he knew that no matter how great your auxiliary technique could be, your main source of strength would always be your cultivation base. It is fine. This new power should grant me a good enough chance to leave this place, and it seems that the time is about to arrive. Cain used his basic scan force field to see the situation around the room and knew the first clinical trial was about to end. The giant cauldron had a tenth of its original volume occupied, and only 3 youths were left alive by this point. As for what happened with the god, they all found their end inside the rivers of boiling blood. Morgana had left, and only Christian and the other 2 scientists were in the room. Cain was sure that the masked old woman would return to see the end of the clinical trial, and he needed to act the moment that happened. Since Morgana was absent, Cain was not afraid of the trio detecting his ego wave, so he sent it toward Iris.
Little girl, I am back.
Iris could not help but smile when she heard King's voice again inside her mind. Still, she did not lose composure and kept her mind focused.
I am delighted to hear your voice again, King. I have followed your instructions to the letter, but I am afraid I have yet to awaken the new lineage.
Iris had done her best and could not help but feel disappointed. King had told her that the lineage was close to awakening, but she did not manage to do it.
Don't worry. Actually, the number of lineages genes inside you is more than high enough, but the genetic flaws are preventing the evolution of your genome. I will fix that immediately.
Iris was shocked to hear the ease with which King spoke of a problem she could not even comprehend. However, she did not have time to be absent-minded, as the familiar FOSS began acting on her genome. As the genetic flaws in Iris were suppressed, she felt like a new FOSS inside her genes was finally set free and began to fill her body with immense power. Kane waited until Iris' power reached its peak before speaking to her again.
Use this time to get used to your new power. The moment the gate to this room opens, I will activate something that will raise mayhem, and you will need to push your wave cloak to its maximum power to protect yourself.
King did not give her details about the mayhem sauce, but Iris trusted this one so much she did not question him and was ready to follow his command.
After that, make sure you rush to the teleportation matrix as fast as possible. The moment someone on the first floor activates it, it will also activate here on the 11th floor, and you will use it to leave this building.
Kane carried on, giving more and more instructions to Iris, giving her an exact path from this place all the way to the surface. Iris nodded and made sure to engrave every single word in her mind, making sure she would remember all of it. Once King finished, she began to adapt to the enhanced strength, speed, and vitality that the lineage granted her. Kane lay flat on the giant cauldron, making sure what remained of the boiling blood still covered his body. His eyes grew sharp when he saw that Morgana had woken up and was coming to the room. He focused on Simon's corpse, specifically the contents of this one's stomach. He did not allow the recovery capsule to scan the Scion because of the Trump care he left inside. The price he had to pay for them was so high that when Kane remembered it, he almost cried. Everything happened extremely fast. The moment the gate opened, and before it could close, Kane activated the thing inside Simon's corpse.
Now,
Iris heard that voice in her mind, and without hesitation, she pushed her essence wave to the limit, making her wave cloak burst with immense strength while generating a protective whirlwind around her body. The burst in the wave from the recovery capsule that held Iris shocked Christian, the other two scientists, and Morgana, who was just entering the room.
boom.
Before they could get over the shock of Iris, still conscious and full of power, the recovery capsule with Simon exploded, unleashing mighty flames that destroyed everything. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 168, Escape, I. 168, Escape, I. Morgana and the three scientists acted immediately, unleashing their wave cloaks. Christian and the masked old woman could resist the flames, but the other two scientists in the room were not so strong and instantly incinerated. That duo was the only one harmed since the open door allowed direct access to the rest of the floor, allowing the flames to kill or maim almost everybody in it. Morgana and Christian jumped out of the room, and both of them had severe burn wounds all over their bodies. The masked old woman was pale and could barely keep her wave cloak bursting. Before the duo could even take a breath, Iris, wearing full armor and wielding her rapier, flashed toward them while dark winds moved around her body. Orlando had left Iris' space ring with her belongings to one of the now-dead scientists, and since they did not bother to brand them, it was easy for the young woman to take back possession of it. Christian immediately put himself in front of Morgana as his astral wave exploded, and his skin turned metallic bronze. He knew that Iris was a powerful level 8 wave warrior, but was sure that the genetic flaws should have hindered her power and that he should be able to contend with her with his level 7 cultivation. However, Christian made a grave mistake since not only were the genetic flaws on Iris very few, but the lineage that awakened inside her body granted more than just a rise in her physical strength. Iris waved her rapier, sending large sharp arcs of dark wind toward Christian and Morgana. Christian's eyes widened as he saw how those arcs of dark wind cut his bronze skin as if it was nothing. Iris' attack split his body into almost a dozen pieces, and he died instantly. Morgana was also shocked by the outrageous power that Iris unleashed, and a flash of enlightenment crossed her eyes since she knew the reason. However, now was not the time to think, and using the precious second that Christian's protection gave her, she flashed toward her room. Iris saw the masked old woman trying to run, and she did not hesitate before sending another wave of dark wind blades. Morgana used all her power and managed to cross the door, but not before having endured several deep cuts on her body that reached all the way to the bone. After entering the room, the door closed, and Iris could do nothing about it. If she attacked with everything she had, the door would break, but it would take too long, and time was something she did not have. The moment Simon exploded, all sorts of alarms began to ring across the building. On the first floor, Orlando had seen Iris's ferocious attack through his AI chip and immediately dashed toward the teleportation matrix. Orlando had already summoned both of his wave puppets. Both the muscular and fat ones were present, but if you look closer at the second, you will notice it was different from the one he used in his last fight with Iris. When the old man reached the 11th floor, he immediately made his essence wave explode and sent both of his wave puppets forward, ready to fight with everything he had. Orlando saw through his AI chip how Iris had dashed toward the teleportation matrix, which is why he was ready for a big battle, but the only thing he saw was wounded scientists and flames. He looked around the room, pushing his focus to the limit, but there was no sign of Iris anywhere. Finally, one wounded scientist looked at the old man and spoke.
She left through the teleportation matrix just as you arrived.
The man used all his strength to share that vital piece of information with the Wave champion. Arnaldo's eyes widened as he could not understand how Iris could have used the teleportation matrix since only he and Morgana could control it. A door opened, showing the wounded Morgana, and she stared right at Orlando.
No matter what, you must capture her. She has awakened the lineage.
If before Orlando was surprised, now he was utterly shocked. The fact that someone other than the mysterious organization had that lineage running through their veins was something they could not allow. Despite the turmoil in his heart and mind, Orlando quickly regained focus.
People will come to help you in less than a minute.
Orlando only uttered those words before activating the teleportation matrix and returning to the first floor. He saw how the building's main gate busted open and a figure jumping from one house to the other, moving farther and farther away. Iris's speed was impressive, and her momentum increased with every jump. Of course, guards were coming from all over the underground city to stop her. However, those behind her were too slow and could not catch up. Those were the lucky ones since Iris cut to pieces every single person in front of her. Orlando saw everything through the countless cameras positioned across the city. Iris' new power frightened him, but he knew that if she were to escape, then the higher-ups would blame him, and a quick death would be mercy. He returned the fat wave puppet to his space ring before jumping onto the shoulder of the muscular wave puppet and commanding this one to chase after Iris. Iris' eyes narrowed as she felt a powerful presence coming after her and noticed the muscular wave puppet dashing toward her with Orlando on its shoulder. Part of her wanted the rematch, but she knew every second counted and focused on her goal, the elevators. On the 11th floor, jets of water were putting out the flames while the rest of the scientists were doing their best to get up. Morgana looked at the destruction with pure hatred as she wondered just how much valuable information had been lost. The death of Christian and the others did not affect her, as her mind only cared about genetic coding. She walked toward the room where the giant cauldron and recovery capsules were, wanting to see how much was lost. However, the moment she crossed the door, a red flash appeared in front of her. A sense of absolute doom assaulted Morgana, and she summoned her wave cloak, but this one was unable to stop two fingers bathed in red lightning from piercing her neck. Morgana's eyes were full of disbelief, and the last thing she saw were two red eyes before dying. Terror appeared in the hearts of the scientists as they saw Morgana's lifeless body falling to the ground, and then they saw a man with a red helmet walking out of the room. Before any of the scientists could do anything, a mighty ego wave overflowed the floor.
Dies.
The scientists' eyes lost focus when Kane uttered those words, and their hearts stopped beating the next second. Kane showed nothing as he saw all that death and did not lose time. He stored Morgana's body in his space ring and other corpses belonging to high-level scientists before dashing toward the teleportation matrix. The teleportation matrix activated, and Kane's figure vanished just as a group of 5 people appeared. They were all golden gods, but the one at the lead had a larger build, and there was clear wisdom in his eyes. The group's leader was confused as he saw only corpses in this place. They were supposed to help the wounded and take special care of Morgana, but there was no sign of the old woman in this place. He had no idea that someone could have hacked the teleportation matrix, so the only explanation that came to his mind was that Morgana and the others still alive teleported to the first floor just as they arrived at the 11th. Not willing to waste time, the group leader gave instructions to return to the first floor, and they did it immediately. When they appeared on the first floor, the group leader frowned again since no one was present. However, his confusion did not last for long since a blinding light appeared in the bathroom, and the next second, a blast of mighty flames covered the first floor, killing everybody in it.
Boom.
Orlando was dashing forward with all his speed when he heard that explosion and turned around, only to see flames coming out of the building's first floor. Panic appeared on his face as he attempted to communicate with Morgana or the squad he sent, but none responded. The old man's mind immediately concluded that Iris had left bombs, just like the one she used to escape, on the first floor and killed Morgana and all the survivors.
You dare.
Orlando was beyond furious since he understood how valuable Morgana's life was and what would happen to him since he failed to protect her. Iris was just as shocked as Orlando by the explosions, but she did not lose focus and continued her journey toward the elevators. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 169, Escape, 169, Escape, Aye. Orlando knew that Iris's goal was the elevators since they were the only path to the surface, so he had sent orders for the guards on the Upper Sahara City to come down and make a defensive formation around them. There were dozens of guards in a battle formation in front of the elevators. Iris could feel their strength, and while they were all weaker than her, their number was high enough to make things very difficult. She knew it would not be easy, but she was ready to fight with all she had to reach those elevators. Just as Iris was about to enter battle with those guards, a blinding light appeared in one of the elevators before another explosion occurred, unleashing a sea of fire.
Boom.
That explosion originated from the elevator that Simon and Kane took to reach the underground city. It was the first place he put his bombs, and they were the last to be activated. The sea of fire struck the back of those dozens of guards, taking them by surprise, killing many, and injuring the rest.
King is.
Iris knew that the only one that could be responsible for that explosion had to be the man that saved her life. Her eyes showed an immense resolution as she seemed to summon the power of the law of wind, transforming herself into a humanoid tornado and advancing with unstoppable might. Orlando's eyes widened as he saw the explosion that broke his men's battle formation just before Iris crushed everybody in her path to pieces and rose to the surface through the elevator shaft. In the old man's mind, the one responsible for all this had to be Iris, but he could believe the woman managed to trick all of them and plan all these traps without no one noticing it. How can someone so young plan schemes at this level? Along with that thought, a monstrous killing intent emerged in Orlando's eyes. He could not allow someone so dangerous and full of potential to keep breathing, since they could become a great threat in the future. Not paying attention to the cries for help from his wounded men, Orlando took one of the elevators unaffected by the explosion and rose to the surface. The elevator was extremely fast, and the old man hoped it would be enough to diminish the distance between him and the young woman. The moment Orlando entered the elevator, a figure moved between the shadows and the flames. No one noticed him, and in a matter of seconds, he vanished through the same elevator shaft that Iris used to rise to the surface. Orlando had just reached the surface when he heard a blast and saw Iris breaking the building's doors and flashing away. No one could stop her, and Sahara City did not have walls that could prevent someone like her from leaving. The muscular wave puppet immediately chased after Iris, making expressions of utter shock in all the residents of Sahara City as they were not used to such a sight. Iris and Orlando moved so fast that they had already crossed the walls of Sahara City and began to move through the desert in a matter of minutes. Orlando was a wave champion with a much larger energy pool. Still, Iris did not have to overexert herself since she was much faster, which is why they moved at a similar speed, with the distance between them not shrinking enough so it could start a battle. The old man could not reach the young woman, and he saw how a forest began to appear in the distance. He knew that if they were to enter it, it would not be hard for Iris to lose him, which was something he could not allow. Orlando's essence wave busted with power, and the hand with which he controlled the wave puppet set ablaze. The muscular wave puppet began to tremble for a second before growing larger and its skin turning green. Orlando's technique pushed the humanoid into overdrive, generating internal damage, but also greatly enhancing its physical might. Iris' eyes narrowed as she noticed the change in the muscular wave puppet and saw the distance between them shrinking. She did not lose calm and carried forward, reaching the forest. Just as the muscular wave puppet was 100 meters away from Iris, she turned around and stroked forward with her rapier, generating dark wind spears. Orlando immediately jumped out of the wave puppet's shoulder and positioned behind this one as he saw that attack coming his way. A solemn expression appeared on his face as he saw those dark wind spears penetrating the humanoid's flesh. The law of wind did not enhance those attacks, but the dark force that originated from Iris' new lineage granted her enough power to surpass the muscular wave puppet's defenses. The old man was a seasoned warrior, so he did not lose focus and pushed the wave puppet forward, accepting that barrage of dark wind spears in exchange for reaching the young woman. Iris saw how the muscular wave puppet resisted her dark wind spear's attack before appearing in front of her and sending a ferocious punch toward her head. The young woman took a deep breath, and while the air was still filling her lungs, she sent a palm strike forward. The muscular wave puppet's massive fist and Iris' small palm were about to clash, and everybody could figure out the winner of such an exchange, but the outcome was not what one would have expected. Just as Iris' palm and the wave puppet's fist were about to collide, a bubble of supercompressed air appeared between them.
Boom.
The bubble exploded, unleashing a powerful burst of wind, repelling the muscular wave puppet's punch. It also allowed Iris to use that force to push her body back, generating some distance between her and the wave puppet. Iris had just landed on the ground when she focused her essence wave on her rapier before piercing it into the ground. Orlando saw that and immediately jumped more than a dozen meters into the air before summoning the fat wave puppet beneath him. He did that just before a giant rapier made of black wind emerged from the ground. The giant dark wind rapier landed on the fat wave puppet, greatly damaging this one's belly but failing to harm the old man. Right after that, Orlando and the fat wave puppet landed on the ground, and he took control of the muscular wave puppet, sending this one to fight against Iris. He could have both of his wave puppets out, but controlling both of them with enough expertise that they could be useful in a battle was beyond his capabilities. Iris had noticed that Orlando could only properly control one wave puppet at a time, but that did not make things much easier for her. She saw the muscular wave puppet coming toward her and waved her rapier into the ground, forging a wall of wind that stopped this one for a moment, allowing her to generate dozens of dark wind needles in the sky. Orlando focused his control over the fat wave puppet, making this one embrace him, generating a layer of protection against the attack. Once the last dark wind needle fell from the sky, Orlando focused on the muscular wave puppet, but he could not give a single command before Iris carried on with her attack. Iris' power skyrocketed as she summoned the force of the Law of Wind for the second time, generating 4 dark wind tornadoes that clashed with the muscular wave puppet's shoulders and knees. There was nothing Orlando could do but see how those dark wind tornadoes maimed the muscular wave puppet, destroying its extremities. Iris turned toward Orlando with cold eyes full of killing intent. Now that the muscular wave puppet could not act, it was the perfect time to carry on with her onslaught, but instead of doing that, she turned around and vanished into the forest. From the beginning, she did not seek to defeat the old man but cripple the muscular wave puppet, so this one could not chase after her. There was an immense rage in Orlando's heart as he saw Iris leaving, but there was nothing he could do. She was too fast, and even if he could keep up with her, without the muscular wave puppet, there was no way he could defeat the young woman. Orlando sighed, wondering how he would explain all this to the higher-ups when a sense of utter doom assaulted him. He glanced behind him and saw a red flash coming his way, aiming a ruthless attack directly at his heart. Using every ounce of strength left in his body, Orlando pushed his body to the side. That saved his life, but the red flash still took his right arm off. Orlando clenched his teeth as he jumped back and put the fat wave puppet between him and the attacker. His eyes narrowed as he saw that the one that almost killed him wore a metallic suit and a red mask. The man in the red hood glanced at the right arm that held a space ring in one of its fingers before turning toward the old man, devouring every ounce of blood in the extremity. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 170, Killing a Wave Champion. 170, Killing a Wave Champion. Orlando's eyes widened with shock as the man in the red hood devoured the blood in his severed arm until there was not even a single drop left. Just when he thought the fight was over, a new threat appeared. As the man in the red hood devoured the blood, the red lightning around his body grew stronger and thicker. There was a solemn expression on Orlando's face as he focused on the astral wave of the man in front of him. Although he could not accurately measure the cultivation of the man in the red hood since he lacked ego wave, judging by the wave's output, he guessed this one was a level 7 astral wave warrior. Normally, someone at that level would not be a threat to a wave champion like him, but he lost his right arm, space ring, and muscular wave puppet. Not to mention that the chase and fight with Iris almost depleted his energy pool, and he was losing blood very fast.
Who are you? Do you understand who you are facing? I am part of an organization even Sector Dukes do not dare to antagonize.
Orlando hoped that his background would draw fear in the heart of the red-hooded man, but it seemed that would not be the case, as the killing intent in the eyes of this one only grew stronger.
Thumpy.
A heartbeat echoed through the forest as Kane activated the first gear, and his skin turned red. Asura Farm had already become a default state for him regarding serious battles, as it exponentially enhanced his speed and the brute strength he could unleash. Things did not end there as Kane took a deep breath and pushed his wave burst, which was already at a shocking 2,000% to 3,000%. Wave burst put Kane's body under tremendous stress the more it rose. Before 2,000% was his limit, but the breakthrough in the blood refinement art allowed him to reach an even higher level. Of course, a 3,000% wave burst meant that Kane's energy pool would deplete very fast, no matter how talented he was with his wave cloak, but he never intended this fight to be one of attrition. Finally, the lost upgrade in his strength came as Kane began to circulate the blood energy through his body and enhance his lightning armament. That gave Kane's blue lightning a blood-like color. Orlando's eyes narrowed as he saw that massive burst in his opponent's strength, and he set ablaze the essence wave in his left hand. Clearly, the man in the red hood would not leave without a fight, and trying to run would only leave his back open to more sneak attacks. The fat wave puppet's body began to tremble as it entered overdrive, growing larger and its skin turning green. Although its primary purpose was as a defensive tool, it did not mean this one could not deploy an impressive battle power. Kane saw the burst in the strength of the wave puppet, and his eyes glowed with resolution. He flashed forward as his blood lightning and astral wave enhanced his right fist. Orlando saw the man flashing toward him at a shocking speed, and he sent the fat wave puppet to attack this one, sending a palm strike that seemed capable of tearing down a small building. The strength in the fat wave puppet's palm strike was impressive, but its speed was subpar, to say the least, making it very easy for Kane to dodge it. However, he did not do it and chose to counter the palm with his fist.
Boom.
The clash between the fat wave puppet's palm and Kane's blood lightning punch generated a shock wave due to the immense power behind them. Kane moved back 3 steps, and he felt his right arm trembling, but there was a smile on his face since his punch pushed back the fat wave puppet the same amount of steps as him. For the first time in his life, he clashed directly with a wave champion that was able to deploy full power and managed to hold his ground. It would have been easy for Kane to disappear once he left the underground city. No one could perceive him, so it would not have been a problem for him to vanish, but he chose to chase after Orlando. There was a burning desire inside Kane's heart to test just how powerful he had become, and he knew that only a wave champion could push him to unleash all his power. A year ago, wave champions were legendary creatures that Kane could only look at and wonder, but now he had the power to threaten the lives of these. Kane did not wait even a second before flashing back into the fray, charging his arms with Blood Lightning and Astral Wave. Orlando could not help but frown as he saw that the red-hooded man did not target him, but his wave puppet. He could not believe this one did not know that the best way to fight a puppet master was to go after the puppeteer. However, there was not much for Orlando to do other than carry on with the fight, using everything he had so the fat wave puppet could crush his enemy.
Zboom. Zboom. Zboom.
More and more shock waves echoed through the forest as palm and fist collided with a power surpassing Wave Warrior's limits. It lasted roughly 30 seconds before Kane jumped back, putting some distance between him and the fat wave puppet. Kane's arms trembled, and his mouth had an iron taste due to the blood in it, but that did not erase his smile since he was able to decipher the fat wave puppet's battle style, and that was not all. System, display the information of the target. Usually the AI chip module would have problems scanning targets stronger than Wave Warriors due to the energy defenses of these ones. Still, direct physical contact like the one deployed in a melee fight allowed the system to go through with the scan. Target scan successful. Class, Wave Artifact. Type, Battle Puppet. Strength, 10.1. Speed, 4.5. Vitality, 17.2. Kane's eyes narrowed as he analyzed that information. Other than its vitality, the rest of its stats fall into the realm of Wave Warrior. Even then, its attacks made my arms tremble. Even with all my upgrades, it would be tough to fight a Wave champion and come victorious. Kane focused on the wave puppet and began to walk calmly toward this one. Orlando frowned as he saw the man in the red hood approaching the fat wave puppet. He felt something was wrong, especially with how this one's body moved, waving from one side to the other. Waiting would not help him, so Orlando made his essence wave burst before commanding the fat wave puppet to attack with all it had. Kane smiled as he saw the wave puppet coming at him, full of killing might. Dozens of palm strikes came his way, but he could easily dodge them. Virtual Sight's accuracy improved immensely once the AI chip module was able to scan the target, and Kane could predict every movement of the fat wave puppet seconds before they happened. Orlando saw how none of his attacks managed to land, and terror began to appear in his heart.
Zboom.
The old man heard a blast, but it was not his wave puppet's attack the one that provoked it. It was his opponent's left hook, the one that unleashed that shock wave, and things only grew worse for the old man from that point on. Kane had just connected a left hook, and as his body waved to the other side, he twisted it, not losing any momentum, and carried on with a right hook. His body gained more momentum as he moved from the right to the left, dodging all the fat wave puppet's palm attacks while unleashing hook after hook.
Zboom. Zboom. Zboom.
Blast after blast echoed through the forest as Kane's body gained more speed, and his strength increased with every single punch. Kane had developed a technique that used the bodily control learned during his assassination training and allowed him to unleash the maximum power of his Asura form. Orlando could only see with shock as the fat wave puppet no longer carried on with his command due to the ferocious onslaught it was receiving. Kane's body moved so fast that it seemed it leapt after images, and powerful gales moved around his back and arms.
Zboom. Zboom. Zboom.
It did not take more than 10 seconds for the fat wave puppet's head to burst to pieces under the might of those punches. Orlando could do nothing but see how his wave puppet fell to the ground after the red-hooded man destroyed its head. Even if it was a machine, its center of command was on its artificial brain. Without it, he could not control it.
Wait.
Orlando was only able to utter that word before a hand covered in blood lightning pierced its heart. Kane saw how the light in the old man's eyes vanished and showed no hesitation before activating the blood refinement art, devouring Orlando's blood to recover some of his stamina. I have become a little strong. That was the only thought on Kane's mind after killing the wave champion and vanishing from the forest. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.